I was just backstage talking with Jean, the recipient of today's fundraiser, and she told me she had just spent a few days at Phoenix Children's Hospital visiting the burn unit. I continued, I wish my family and I had had that kind of support when I was burned as a toddler. It was the very first time I had said those words out loud. I had kept my secret for over 60 years, and I had just said it in front of 200 people, most of whom were not acquaintances of mine. They were strangers. The silence was palpable. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just went on with my rehearsed speech. Before my life was so altered dramatically, I started life as a preemie, spent time in an incubator, and when I came home, I slept in a dresser drawer because I was too small for my crib.
3 things you will learn in this podcast. How a secret held for 60 years came out by accident on a stage in front of 200 strangers. Why sharing her story keeps triggering the same reaction in other people. A veteran, a coworker, a stranger at a Rotary breakfast, all in tears, all admitting a secret of their own for the first time. What do you get when you combine 35 years of healthcare leadership that showed her every version of what it looks like when humans lead well and when they don't, plus a woman who survived burns, abuse, and stalking and chose to write about it so others wouldn't feel so alone, plus a coach and author who turned every scar into a roadmap for becoming visible? You get Gayle Patrillo. Hi, Gayle. I'm so glad you were here.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm excited to be here as well.
I'm so excited for my listeners to hear your story. I think you have a powerful story, so they're not here to hear me talk, so I'm going to kick it back to you and let you just share with us what you have to say today.
Well, thank you. So, as I open my mouth, nothing comes out. Did I stop breathing? The tears started inadvertently, the waterfall cascading down my cheeks, mascara running down my face. And as you might suspect, knowing timing is everything, that's when I heard the MC call my name. Instead of moving to the podium, I wanted to run the other way, but I didn't. I walked to the stage, script in hand, wiping my eyes, smearing my mascara more. I was 65 and behind stage with Jean, the founder of Beads of Courage, the recipient of the fundraiser that I was speaking at. Her organization is international, and I'd known her about 2 years. I actually tease her that I live vicariously through her international travels. I had just asked her where she'd been, and her answer totally threw me. I wasn't prepared for it, and I wasn't prepared for my response. From the podium, I looked through the audience of 200 people. As I gathered myself and looked out, they were eating and sipping champagne. And I said, sorry, wiping a tear from my eye. I was just backstage talking with Jean, the recipient of today's fundraiser, and she told me she had just spent a few days at Phoenix Children's Hospital visiting the burn unit. I continued, I wish my family and I had had that kind of support when I was burned as a toddler. It was the very first time I had said those words out loud. I had kept my secret for over 60 years, and I had just said it in front of 200 people, most of whom were not acquaintances of mine. They were strangers. The silence was palpable. I didn't know what to do with it, so I just went on with my rehearsed speech. Before my life was so altered dramatically, I started life as a preemie, spent time in an incubator, and when I came home, I slept in a dresser drawer because I was too small for my crib. I quickly grew into a geekly girly girl who loved going new places and meeting new people. I was a curious 2.5-year-old, my mom's best friend and her shadow. always by her side. On a beautiful, cold, sunny day in upstate New York, my mom and I walked down the street, crunching the beautiful fall leaves under our feet as we walked to a neighbor's home for a mother-daughter tea. It was 1956. Tea wasn't really the drink of choice, it was coffee. As I followed my mom in the house, the smell of those fresh-baked cookies was overwhelming. The table so fancy, like you'd see on one of those old TV shows. Table covered in lace, cloth napkins, china coffee cups and saucers, dessert plates, and real silverware, all adorning the high-top kitchen table. As I climbed up to the bench, I saw the plate of cookies. I had to have one. I reached for one and toppled a pot of freshly brewed coffee off the table and all over me. My winter snowsuit acted like a magnet, drawing the heat in. 40% of my body, from my breast to my navel, was covered with 3rd and 4th degree burns, down to the bone. I was rushed to the hospital where I spent months. My parents were told they didn't know if I would live or die. I did come out of the hospital, but I came out a changed girl. No longer happy, no longer curious. This life-altering trauma, my scalding, made me afraid of everyone and everything, even my own shadow. I believed I was damaged goods. I carried embarrassment and shame and guilt. I was alone, and I was lonely. I couldn't even look at myself in a mirror. I did everything I could to be invisible to myself and others, covered those bedroom mirrors with sheets, and all through school, regardless of the grade, I never raised my hand even when I knew the answers. I hid behind my mom, behind my clothes, behind a very small, carefully chosen group of friends. And I always spoke with my hand over my mouth to hide my buck teeth and the large spaces between them, not really aware that I was actually hiding my face and my body. 50 was a momentous year for me. I took charge. I got braces and my master's degree. I needed these things just for me. My looks had been so wrapped up in my trauma. I knew I could make a difference, have an impact on myself and on others. My braces and my MBA were a deliberate act to overcome the habit of covering my mouth and overcoming that heavy imposter syndrome that had plagued me throughout my career and throughout my life. Surviving was something I never thought about. I simply did it every day, one foot in front of the other, supported by my amazing parents who encouraged me to live as normally as possible, though we never talked about the accident. Thriving was another story. It was not an overnight change. It was a process that unfolded over decades as I worked to overcome fears and phobias and self-doubt. At 65, that day on stage, September 12th, 2019, changed my life. There was an awakening in me. I couldn't believe I had just shared that secret hidden for so many years prior. I started sharing my story. It wasn't an easy process, yet I found there was such importance in doing so. I began to share it more freely, more openly, and now I breathe more deeply and easily. I've learned I'm not alone. I've learned a lot. I've learned that when I'm vulnerable and share my story, people lean in because they recognize their story and mine. We've all experienced trauma of one kind or another in our lives, and our journeys, they're very different, but there are similarities that run through them. Healing isn't linear. It's up and down, just like a roller coaster ride. I've learned when I share my story and shed my secrets, my healing journey expands. The weight gets lifted from my shoulders. I stand more erect, and I build my confidence. And by sharing, we collectively give other people permission to share their story so they can too begin to heal themselves. Finally, understand why I survived all those years ago. I'm simply grateful. grateful to be alive and truly thriving. At 72, I'm a successful coach and speaker. I'm intentionally being visible. I've gone from being a mouse to a moose, and I'm stepping out of my comfort zone. All because I reached for a cookie all those years ago. I found my real purpose. I'm an advocate for burn prevention and blood donation and to protect burn survivors.
You are bigger than a moose, my friend. Oh, wow. I
Thank
have
you.
tell that story from a stage, and it is just as powerful hearing it again from you. I mean, whew, that's it's just so moving. It's so moving, and it's so I'm just so thrilled that you share it and that you're vulnerable and that you recognize yourself in at 50 and, that time in your life where you kind of really step into yourself in a way that is undescribable, really. I always say the 30s were better than the 20s and the 40s were like, yes. But the 50s are just like, wow, wow, like mind blowing. And it's such a beautiful story because you are an incredible woman. And to see you smiling and joyful and living this life as fully as you possibly can right now is just an amazing honor to even witness it, honestly. So thank you. Thank you for
Thank you.
sharing. Yeah. Wow. So why do you think you and your family never talked about it? I mean, I know that's kind of a generational thing. I know my mom and that group of people never wanted to talk about things. My mom still says sometimes, "Do we have to talk about this?" And I'm like, "Okay, I guess not."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think it was a generational thing. I mean, we're talking 1956, 1959. You didn't air your dirty laundry. If you had a drug problem or an alcohol problem, if you got help, you didn't talk about, oh, I just got out of rehab. This was a trauma for my mom. She was right there. She couldn't do anything to save me. It was trauma for my dad, who to this day I don't know how he got to the hospital. He was a truck driver. There were no cell phones. How did the dispatcher get to him in a truck to get him to get back to the depot, to get his car, to get to the hospital, to find out that his daughter might not survive? It was traumatic. And back then, you didn't talk about your traumas. You didn't air your dirty laundry. My mom, until the day she died 3 years ago, kept that guilt with her, in her. So yeah, I think it was a generational thing. I think it was about preserving the secrets within and under the roof of your home.
yeah. I mean, I think about it wasn't happening when I was growing up, but I think about my parents' generation where if you got pregnant, you got sent away to have the baby in secret and give it up for adoption. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of closets with a lot of big secrets in families from that era. And I'm sure long before that, right? That's generational trauma that was
Yeah.
passed down. And so, we see it replay over and over again. And hopefully we're healing it a little bit at a time. So, what was the sort of moment in your life where you finally, I mean, I know it happened around 50, but like, what was that pivot moment? What was that moment where you're like, nope, I'm investing in me?
Yeah. Well, I think, to be honest, it was coming off that stage. The weight was lifted off the shoulder. I had shared a secret. I wasn't burdened by it anymore. And as the event was winding down and people were leaving the ballroom, I went to the ballroom doors to thank people for coming. And this one woman, fairly well known in Tucson, although I didn't know her, came up to me and she gave me a big hug and she said, "Girl, you've got a story to tell." And I was like, "No, not really." But I was opening myself up for that very first time, really, to say, let's go have coffee. Let me hear your story. And as I said, that was September. By Christmas time, she had gotten my whole story out of me. Nobody had ever listened, had ever asked, because I had never been open to it before. And so, as I started sharing the secrets and how I dealt with growing up with the scars and the inferiority complex and the imposter syndrome, I was like, first of all, recognizing I'm not alone. As I tell my story, people they feel it. It resonates with them, and many times it's because we all have secrets that we haven't shared. And so I can tell you, for example, as I first started telling my story right after my book came out, I was at a Rotary Club breakfast. There were about 30 people in the room, men and women, all 50 and older. And I was sitting next to this gentleman, clearly a veteran, and he looked at me and he said, "Your story was so moving. Thank you for sharing." And I said, "Well, what's your story?" Kind of kidding, like. And he looked at me and he paused for a second and he looked down, and it was summer. Everyone in the room had shorts or like culottes on or something. And he had long pants and a long shirt. And he said, "I never go in short pants and short sleeves. I was burned by an IED in Afghanistan. And only my wife knows and has ever seen my scars." And tears just flooded me and him. And the couple of people that were at our table were like, "Bob," and that's not his name.
Right.
"Bob, you never told us." And he's like, "I got to go." And he walked out of the room. He was relieved, I think, that he shared, but he was also like embarrassed because he had never shared that with
Overwhelmed.
people
He was
that were very,
overwhelmed. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Especially
and that's
because,
the
yeah, men
story.
don't often know how to deal with emotions. And that's a lot of emotion, right? That he has stuffed down. And so I can
Yeah.
imagine the overwhelm of probably a little bit of relief, like you said, when you said it on stage, you felt the burden lift, but also
Yeah.
this overwhelming, did I say that out loud?
Right. Right. Because I had never done
What
that.
does
He
that
had never told
what
another
does that mean
soul.
now? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it
That's
happens
kind
every time I speak, whether it's to 3 people or 300 people. I was invited to speak at a corporation up in Phoenix, and they have guest speakers every month at a luncheon, and it's a scientific company. And so they can have scientists or pharmaceutical people or heaven knows what. And I was just asked to speak. So afterwards, I asked people in the audience, and there were 30 or so on Zoom and probably 45 in the room. And I said, "Does anybody have any questions?" And little by little, people raised their hand. And I noticed while I was speaking, there was a woman in the way far back left corner, and her head was down the entire time. And it was clear she was writing. She never looked up. And slowly her hand went up, and I thought to myself, that's weird. She wasn't even paying attention. It was lunch hour. Maybe she had a project. I had no idea. But when I called on her, she stood up and she said, "My name's Marianne," which it wasn't. And she said, "I'm Marianne, and I was burned at 12, and I've never told a soul." And her colleagues, like the tears started, her colleagues, I don't know how all like 35 or 40 of them got up so quickly and embraced her. They found a circle, they made a circle around her. And I just stood back watching this interaction of people who work together 5 days a week, 8, 9 hours a day, and they did not know her secret. And they reacted to her with such compassion and empathy. Like I was suddenly invisible and that was okay. It was about her at that moment, that
right.
release. And I remember watching her leave that room at the end of that hour lunch, and she walked straighter and more erect than when she walked into the room. I mean, that's powerful stuff.
That's powerful. Yeah.
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah, it really is. It really is powerful. And I think that when we share our stories, we heal and we help others heal at the same time. I think it's both. So
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
question, my next question is, so you were taking the stage at a benefit. What were you was supposed to be speaking about that night?
Yeah, I was supposed to be talking about the nonprofit and how we work together. I had just created my own business, and it's First Impressions Image Consulting and Image Consulting and Coaching. And so it was really, so the event was my fashion show launching my business. And I had, the first year it was tiny. I had about 50 people in my audience. My 10 models were my clients, and I worked with them in their closets to dress them. And then we had them on stage. Second year, which was 2019, we had 200 in the audience. I had over 50 sponsors and exhibitors, and my business was growing. And I worked with Steinmart, which is now out of business. But if you know Steinmart,
Yeah.
it was children, boys and girls, men and women's clothing. And I dressed my 25 models out of their store. And so those are the people that walked on the runway that afternoon. And so it was about how to be your best self, how to create a first impression. I mean, that's what the speech was about, and how important it is to give back to our community, which is why Jean or Beads of Courage was there for the second year. So it had nothing to do with me, myself, my incident, my trauma. It was about, I'm launching my business and here's what we're doing, and, that kind of thing.
Your purpose just walked in the room with you, didn't it?
Did
Smacked
that,
you
Jen?
upside the head and was like, guess what? You've got more in you.
It did. I'm still astounded, honestly, Tanya, that that's what I did that day. I mean, I had no preconceived notions of what that event would look like. It was an event. It was a fashion show. It was people coming and eating and learning and all of that. And to have been backstage with Jean, and she says, I just spent time with in Phoenix at the Children's Hospital in the burn unit. And I don't even know what went through my mind. But like I said, the tears just flowed. There was no control. And when I opened my mouth, I didn't know what was going to come out on stage. Like there was no rehearsal for that.
Yeah,
And it
you
was
had a
just,
visceral moment because you had a
yeah,
connection with that experience, right?
yeah,
So that
yeah,
just pulled it up from your body and was like,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And there was no prep for that. There,
yeah,
there was, there was nothing. It just, they say everything happens for a reason and there's a time for every purpose. It was just the right time. That's all I can say. The time was right for me to come out of hiding and lift that weight from my shoulders, come out of the shadows. I mean, there's 100 different ways of explaining it,
right.
but it was the right time to do it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I got braces so that I could close the gaps in my mouth, and I didn't have to talk like this anymore. So that was really the push to get me to start feeling that I was worth something and that I had something to contribute and move forward in my life, whatever that was going to look like. Who knew?
Well, the universe knew.
Evidently. And I am now a believer in that, because since that day, I've learned that if you put something out there long enough, hard enough, specific enough, things happen. And so, yes, the universe knew it was my time, even though I had no concept of what
Yeah.
that was going to look like or where it would go after writing a book and being on stage and telling my story on TV and radio and in print, and being board chair of the American Red Cross of Southern Arizona and giving of my time, because I survived in large part due to plasma donations. You can't buy that. People have to donate their blood and their plasma. And so I'm a huge advocate for that.
Yeah.
And working with the Burn Foundation and all, like, it's changed my life. Changed my life.
Yeah. I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy. Like, what a beautiful and hard journey.
Yeah.
You don't recognize it when you're in the hard, but if you're lucky enough, you get to see the
Yeah.
beauty
No,
that comes
that's true.
right. And the
Yeah.
amount of people that you affect, that impact is huge. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about your book. How can people find you?
Oh, sure. Thanks.
Yeah.
So my memoir came out last April, and it's
Nice.
called Becoming Visible: Overcoming Fears, Phobias, and Trauma-Induced. What is it? Trauma. Oh my gosh. Overcoming trauma-based fears, phobias, and self-doubt. That's what it's called. And you can get it on Amazon. You can get it off my website. My website is First Impressions, plural, the number 1.com. So FIRST Impressions 1.com. And so you can find the book there, and you can find like this podcast and the others I've been on, and tips and tricks about burn prevention. We're into summer and kids burn their feet on the hot concrete, and people fall in or get pushed into fire pits, and we have barbecues and fire happens and fireworks. Exactly. Yeah, all of that. And so I'm a big proponent of, let's prevent what happened to me happening to others. Let's be aware of how you turn your handles of your pots and pans so they're not hanging into the kitchen. They're to the side or in the back of the stove. Don't wear long sleeves that can catch on, the burning of gas stoves, all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much we don't think about. Accidents
Yeah.
happen in a second.
Oh my God, that's so true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Everybody's going to have your information in the show notes. And
Okay.
I'm not going to post the Amazon link because I want them to buy it from you,
That
because
would be
you'll get
awesome.
more money that way instead of lining billionaires' pockets, which I'm not about.
Me neither.
Even though,
I had to do that because that's what you have to do. But I
well, I'm-
appreciate. Yep.
yeah, I just co-authored. I wrote a chapter for a anthology, which was released yesterday, which by the time this post will be, I don't know, a month or so behind. But it's on Amazon. But I want
Yeah.
people, if they want a copy of the book, I'm like, buy it from me and I'll sign it and ship it to you. Right? Because
Exactly.
Amazon has increased their cut that they take from authors.
Yes. Yes.
And so, yeah, I think it's more important that the money goes to the people rather than to the billionaires. So that's
Yeah.
just, I'm going to get off that soapbox now. But the
I
only
can't.
post your
I can't disagree.
and your website. And so, yeah, well, what an honor it's been to have you. I do have a question I always ask my guests at the end, which is if you had one or two tidbits of wisdom to pass on to them or advice, what would you tell our listeners?
I have two pieces of advice. First of all, recognize that no matter what you're dealing with, divorce, addiction, it doesn't matter what it is, you are not alone. And when you share, people lean in to support you. And the people that don't aren't worth it. So don't waste your time, your energy, your breath on those people. Be part of that support. And the other thing I learned when I got my braces off was smile. Smiles are contagious, the good kind of contagious. And when you smile, people smile back. You open doors that you never would have realized would open for you when you do this. I tell my coaching clients that all the time. If it's between you and one other person applying for a job, you're going to get the job because you smiled, you made an impact on them. And it makes you relax when you smile. You can't be tense and smile. It's like just a natural, contagious thing to share.
Yeah, I agree with both of those pieces of advice, 100%. And I think even when you're in a bad mood, if you make yourself smile, it can be contagious to yourself, right? It
Yes.
takes more muscles and energy to frown than it does to
Yeah.
smile. And people who are
Yeah.
always like, "What's these wrinkles around my eyes? I hate." I get that all the time as a photographer. I'm like, those are called smile lines. Those are like awards. Wear
Yeah.
them as a badge of honor. Like I'm living a
Right.
life.
We've earned them. We've earned every one of them. Yes, I agree. This Botox stuff, no, thank you. This little
No,
bit of gray I'm getting, keep it.
oh my God, look at all this. Yeah, I'm keeping it. I've been rocking it since my 30s.
Yeah.
It started off as one little streak and then it took over, and I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Mine's no under here. But it's coming. There's more and more of it. So says my hairdresser every 6 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, we'll put all your information in the show notes. I don't know why I said will. It's just me. There's
It's
no we
okay.
here.
We
Oh,
who
we'll
wear
put
multiple hats.
coffee. Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And I look forward to seeing you and hopefully sharing a stage with you again. I would love that. And yeah, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope I share this stage with you again too.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.